Welcome to the Midwest Education Technology Community Podcast, otherwise known as METC. METC is a nonprofit organization based out of St. Louis, Missouri, with a mission to motivate, engage, transform, and connect all learners to advocacy, partnerships, and professional learning opportunities. METC is a premier affiliate of ISTE. To learn more about METC, follow us on social media at METC EdPlus. You may also check out our website at metcedplus.org. METC is a program of Education Plus. To learn more about Education Plus, go to edplus.org. Hello, and welcome to the METC Podcast, episode 24. In this episode, I sit down with Shannon Steimel from the Lift for Life Academy, and we talk about the importance of leveraging community partnerships and funding opportunities. By doing so, you will be able to bring some very engaging, some awesome projects and ideas to your students to enhance their learning. Shannon and I talk about many of the ways that she has brought these partnerships and different funding opportunities to her students and her building. All of the information that she shares with us during this episode can be found in our show notes at metcedplus.org under the podcast tab there. You can also reach out to Shannon. She shares out her Twitter handle and email messaging there as well, so connect with her. And I would like to thank Shannon for participating in this particular podcast and for providing us with so much information on how we can enhance our opportunities for partnerships and funding within our own districts. So thank you, Shannon, for that. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and get to episode 24 of the METC Podcast, Leveraging Community Partnerships and Funding Opportunities. Enjoy. Hello there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the METC Podcast. I'm here with another special guest. Her name is Shannon Steimel, and she is from the Live for Life Academy down in the city of St. Louis. Welcome, Shannon.
Hi, Jonathan. It's great to talk to you.
Thank you. You as well. So before we get into our episode about leveraging community partnerships, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Sure. I am the Library Media Specialist and Technology Committee Chair, and also more recently, Future Ready Project Manager for my charter school. We serve students in grades 6 through 12 throughout the city, and I love my job.
Awesome. So we are here to talk about leveraging community partnerships. Can you kind of explain a little bit about what you mean with that topic?
Sure. So we want to give our students authentic learning experiences and prepare them to be future ready. One of the gears of the Future Ready framework is community partnerships, which includes formal and informal, local and global community connections, collaborative projects, relationships that advance the school's learning goals. St. Louis is an innovation hub, and we want to be taking advantage of that to leverage those opportunities for students. For instance, there's a startup company in Cortex District called 1904 Labs that has partnered with our middle school for an after-school coding club. Our middle school tech teacher could have done the club on his own, but how cool is it that our students get to make connections with tech innovators who are actually working in the field?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So tell me a little bit more about my 1904 Labs. I've never heard of them before.
So I think they work mainly in cloud-based solutions. Not real familiar with everything that they do, but if you're interested, I know they have a website and you can find out more. We just finished our app building with them. The kids used the app builder through MIT to make apps, and then they went and presented them at Cortex, which was pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. I think I remember one of your students sharing the app that they made. Is that right? Yeah,
they each made their own Android app, so that was pretty cool for them.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think it's still on my phone, so I have to get back out and play it again. It's pretty cool. So that's pretty neat. So you're able to bring in a startup business and help with a coding club, and of course, I love coding, so that's awesome. And I bet it was a win-win for both of them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think they're interested in continuing that partnership in the future, which is what you want to do, is just always build on those partnerships that you have.
Yeah. So how did you go about, or how did the teacher that ran that club go about leveraging that partnership? How did they just reach out, or they just happen to do some research? How do you come across these startups or other businesses?
So, a lot of it is networking and word of mouth. And so the 1904 Labs actually was connected through us, through someone who used to work for our development department, who met them and said, hey, I've got this great school that you might want to partner with. And so then they reached out to us and we were like, yeah, let's do that. So you never know like where conversations are going to lead. And I think it's really important to always be telling the story of your school or your district to everyone that you meet, because not just to have that elevator speech ready, but to just truly speak to like why you love your job and what's cool about it, and ask people what they do and what their jobs and affiliations are. Maybe they belong to a group that might have guest speakers come in sometimes, and so you could come in and talk about the work that you're doing with the school. Most people want to help kids, they just don't know how. And so, sometimes it just takes contacting somebody and asking. When we started our 21st century photography class, we wanted to connect students with, like drone photography and 360 photography. And so we just kind of did an internet search to see who in St. Louis is doing that as a business, and reached out that way. And the first person we called said no, but the second person said yes. And that ended up being a really cool partnership that now they're continuing to work with our kids.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So, yeah, I mean, we would do research all the time, but I guess we don't think about doing research to reach out to organizations kind of for help. So when you did that research and you contacted that drone company, was it a teacher that reached out to them, or did students reach out to them?
So, I think you can do it either way. I think when the kids reach out, it can be very powerful, and teaching kids how to, make a business call or how to write an email inquiry are really powerful skills to use. In that particular case, although we worked with a student group for the committee, it was the teacher that did the reaching out. But I think that would definitely, be an awesome thing to teach the kids how to reach out like that. We also have a really awesome community outreach person on our staff, and she helps a lot of times get the connection started with the volunteering and partnership opportunities.
Yeah, I agree. It'd definitely be very valuable get the kids used to that. But I think it also, like to your point, that takes time, and it's not something you can do right off the bat. I think even if you're getting started, I would want to call that company first. Hey, just to let you know, I'm going to have a student call you and kind of pitch something to you, just so you can kind of, sometimes adults can kind of just slough off kids, kids. But yeah, no, I think that's the way you guys got it started. I think that sounds awesome. So once you made that connection with either 1904 or that drone photography organization, what was the best way you guys got started? How did you get started into actually working together?
So I think one thing that's super important is to try to make getting involved as easy as possible. Try to streamline your red tape. Of course, you're going to have, district red tape that you have to go through, but try to make that as easy as possible. And even if there are some things that take time, to just keep informing the company or person of what's going on. If they don't hear from you in a while, they may think that you've lost interest. And so you might just, even just a quick email or phone call to say, hey, this is where we're at in that process of getting you guys started, can be really helpful. Our community outreach volunteer, or not employee rather, she gives people her business cell phone number instead of having to call the school, because she knows that sometimes calling the school can be harder to do. Now, obviously, if you're a classroom teacher, you can't just be giving out your cell phone number. But that idea of just trying to be as responsive as you can, I think can be really helpful. We have volunteers who tell us, I started out, I wanted to volunteer with another school, but I never heard back for them, or it took so long that, I just kind of gave up. So I really don't think I can emphasize that part of it enough. I also think like shooting for a small, successful pilot program is better than trying to, like have your entire district, participate in anything. The logistics of a large program can be harder, and especially when you're talking about, community partnerships. Sometimes, that small successful start that can build into a larger relationship later can be really important. And I think too, even when you're not actively in a partnership, the more you can support and network with other nonprofits, the better. People are always moving around jobs within the nonprofit sector. And so, even a connection that you may not see a direct connection to what you're doing now can turn out to be really fruitful later. And if you want some other great examples of community partnerships, I would check out the Parkway District's Spark program, where students pursue personal direction with curriculum shaped by industry partners and with the latest industry trends. There's also an METC 2018 pre-conference session on community connections. I saw the presenter over the summer at the METC Summer Institute, and she is doing some amazing work to partner with local businesses in her community to bring in-class internships to her elementary students where they get to try on careers.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I'll check that out and share it out within the show notes for sure. I'm familiar with the Spark program in Parkway, and it's pretty cool. Definitely a really cool deal, an opportunity for their kids too. So, but yeah, you gave some good points. I could definitely see, like you said, organizations want to get involved. They don't know how or where to start. So I think that process and having that streamlined would be very helpful for them. And then starting small, I think it's huge. I think that's a great piece of advice there, because sometimes you get so involved in a large project, you can get lost in the mess. And so I like your idea of starting small. It's huge. I think that's a good idea.
Great, thanks.
So once you leverage these partnerships, right, and maybe you want to go visit 1904 Labs, or you want to go and see how a drone photo shoot actually is, what happens when it takes place, that kind of thing. That all kind of seems like it costs money. So how do we maximize our funding opportunities when we know that all budgets are tight?
That is for sure. There's different options. Of course, there are grants that are out there that you can try out for. There's some really great local ones. We were able to receive several sizable grants to fund technology initiatives in our school. So, for instance, we got a one-to-one program for our high school math was funded through the Monsanto Fund. And that 21st Century Photography program that I was talking about, that actually ended up being funded from ITEP, the Innovative Technology Education Fund here in St. Louis. And that was a $50,000 grant that we received. And
wow.
Their grant cycle is open right now, due January 31st. So don't propose another photography thing, because they like to be innovative and they won't want to, do over the same thing they have. But if you have another new and innovative idea, that can be great. For smaller projects, I would say crowdfunding sites are definitely a way to generate money. I've been really successful with Donors Choose. In fact, just in the last year, I've had 8 successful Donor Choose projects and raised $4,600. Now, that's money that wasn't in the budget for things like starting a library makerspace and helping me to attend the ISTE conference next summer. I also have an Amazon wish list for my library that's been great as well. So, there definitely are opportunities out there. You just have to seek them out.
That's awesome. I have an Amazon wish list. I wonder why. But it's for me, not for my kids.
Yeah, this one has library books on it. But, the thing with the Amazon wish list that's different than from like a Donors Choose project is the person is buying the item for you instead of giving you money toward it. So, it might work well for, say you want things like pipe cleaners and pom-poms or whatever, some small supplies for your makerspace. You could put those on an Amazon wish list and, certainly find donors that can, spend the money to buy you those things. You may not find someone who's going to just, buy an iPad for you off of your Amazon wish list, but you can make a school wish list or, one specific to your your classroom or program, and then just spread the word, and people just buy you stuff, and it shows up at school, and it's great.
Nice. So I'm assuming that it's not just as simple as go and pick items, say, hey, we want these cool things. So what steps do you go through to achieve your funding goal? So you got $4,600 through donors choose. You got these other aspects. You got the $50,000 grant. You got the one from Monsanto. So what process do you have in place to achieve those goals?
So when you find out about a granting opportunity or other funding opportunities, I think it's really important to find that sweet spot that matches your needs to the mission of the organization that's funding it. So for instance, I mentioned ITEF wants to be really innovative. And so, the first time that we applied for the ITEF grant, we were asking for a one-to-one Chromebook, which, we really needed Chromebooks at the time. We were trying to get more Chromebooks for our school. However, they were funding Chromebooks, 3 years ago or 4 years ago. They've already done that. And they want to see that next innovative thing that's going to really excite the kids and get them involved. And, not to say that you can't be innovative with the Chromebook, but we just weren't matching our ask to their mission of being really innovative. So I think that starting with the why, your vision, and not the what, the stuff, can go a long way towards trying to match your needs to the mission of the organization. A focused program is better than the kitchen sink approach. Like, I can think of, a million things I can do with an iPad, but that's, telling them those million things is not as compelling as, well, I want to do digital storytelling, and I'm going to use the iPad to do that by using, these apps, and, and this is going to be the outcome for students. One of the ways that I've raised so much money on Donors Choose is for looking for match offers where, they're going to match each donation for a specific project. And a lot of times those have kind of specific guidelines that you have to follow as well. So, that work that you put into figuring out what your asks should be before you ever put pen to paper, like, that's 90% of the work of getting a grant is done before you ever start writing.
Little research goes into it, huh?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I love the whole start with why, of course. I'm a big Simon Sinek fan. His book, I go back to that circle. I got it earmarked and circled and everything. It's amazing stuff. And I think that's huge. Talking about, it's not about the stuff, it's about the content and what they're going to get out of it and why you're doing it. And that's so huge. Us techie folks, we know that, but teachers
we get excited about the stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We get excited about the stuff, and sometimes it's hard for us to kind of pull back from that.
Yeah.
And start with the vision. And remember that the people that are reading your grant are not always, techie people or education people. So you want to, put it in terms that they're really going to, understand, and watch out for too much jargon. In fact, if you can have someone read your grant proposal or your Donors Choose project that isn't in education or tech, then they can help to let you know if you're on the right track as far as explaining it so that someone can understand. Even innovative grantors like ITEF will say, make sure if it's something really, really new, that you define what it is and how it's going to help students.
Nice. So that sounds like a great tip, and I bet you've got a lot of them. So what are some other tips that you can kind of give our listeners as they're probably scouring for grants right now as they listen to this?
Sure.
What are some tips you can give them to start writing?
So one tip is just give your program a catchy name or a title. Like, even if it doesn't have a name, your program that you're envisioning, like, go ahead and give it one and then refer to it as that program throughout the ask. That can just be like one way to kind of start the idea of this is our vision. If you're an educator, you're probably familiar with Marzano's SMART goals. And so you can think about that when you're thinking about a grant ask as well. So you want your project to be specific. You want to show how it's going to be measurable. Usually they're going to want to see, like, how are you going to tell us if what we give you is making a difference. You want to make sure it's something that is achievable. that it's relevant to the needs of the students, and time bound in the sense of, that this is something you can accomplish within the time frame of the grant itself. And I would say probably the best piece of advice I can give for writing grants is to incorporate student voice and choice. I think that, we tried for the ITEF grant, actually. That was our third time when we finally got it. And I would say the thing that made the best difference is, before we ever started writing, we actually formed a student grant writing committee. And those kids went on some field experiences with us to the different photography, the drone photography and the 360 photographer. And we went to tech shop and looked at what they had there with photography. And we toured the International Photography Museum, and we had some essential questions in mind. And the kids really helped shape, what it was we're going to ask for and why we're asking it. And we included a lot of their direct quotes within the grant itself. So, if you can't go to that extent of, having a student committee that has all these experiences, at least, get the input of students, whether you're doing a Google survey for your kids and then pulling quotes from there for your grant. But if you can do that student grant writing committee, it was just an awesome experience for the kids and for us. And I think it's what put us over the top finally to get the grant. That's
an awesome idea. I love that you had a whole committee involved full of students, because that really goes back to your why. You talked about starting with why, and your why really should be the students, right? It's more than that, but obviously, but your students are the centerpiece of that. And so having them integrally involved in that process is huge. So that's awesome.
Yeah, you don't know until you ask them what they are interested in. I thought they would think the 3D printer was really cool, and the idea of being able to turn their photographs into 3D prints, but they were more excited about T-shirt making. So, you just never know.
Cool.
Yeah.
So it sounds like another key tip was something that I would have trouble with, is to not give up. You said it took 3 times to get that ITEF grant, and that's persistence right there. It's a perseverance. Yeah. Awesome.
And my grant manager was telling me that there's actually a statistic of the more times that you've applied for a grant, the better off you are, the better your chances are of getting it. You really start to hone in on what they're looking for. ITEF offers a lot of help with getting their grants. Like, they offer help sessions. They even, after the first time we didn't get the grant, they did a little follow-up meeting with us to kind of share, where we had done well and where we were maybe a little off track. So, our grant manager, if she has a question about something that's in a grant, she'll just pick up the phone and call and ask. And sometimes they will give you the help, and other times they'll say, well, that's something really, that we need to save for when you actually, we make our decision. But she'll always say, don't think of it as some, nameless, faceless foundation. These are real people behind the grant organization. And, so treat them like real people. And you want to use all the help that you can. And even if a grantor doesn't offer the extent of help that ITEF does, a lot of times they'll have webinars or FAQs, or they'll give you a rubric of how they're going to score the grant application. And so you really want to take advantage of whatever resources there are. Look at the previous winners for the particular grant that you're going for, and see if you, spot some trends. ITEF, they talk about how, one year they funded a STEAM bus for Rockwood, and then the next year, they got 3 or 4 different applications for a STEAM bus.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, well, and it's a great idea, but, if you had looked at their past winners, you would see it wasn't like they were funding STEAM buses every year. Yeah. Whereas, maybe a different organization that with a different mission, if they find some things that work, they will let you replicate those ideas. So, doing your homework on those previous winners can be really helpful. I even called up a winner from the previous year to get advice on what the in-person interviews were going to be like when we made it to that round, because I was just feeling really nervous. And, just that little short conversation of, oh, this is what happened, that helps us out.
That's awesome. Those are some great tips, stuff that I wouldn't have thought of, that's for sure, and I'm probably missing from some of my grants that I've failed at. So definitely have to go back and tweak some things for some of those. So, Shannon, we've kind of come to our end of our time here. That's amazing how fast it goes by.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for joining us and sharing all of your knowledge and helping our listeners write better grants and get more partnerships and funding.
Yeah, I have to tell you one last thing. There's a totally awesome grant opportunity right now on Donors Choose for STEM projects where it's a 5 times match. So for every $10 that's donated, they're donating $50.
Wow.
A foundation is, but you have to model your ask after one of the winning ideas. So if you go to the Donors Choose site and look for the match offers, you'll see that. And when they have awesome offers like that, they go fast. So you should really check it out as soon as you hear this podcast. You should go to the Donors Choose site and check that out. And I hope to see some people at METC this year. We're going to be talking about this topic of leveraging community partnerships and funding opportunities there. So
that's awesome.
Hope to meet some of you in person.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again, and we will talk to you again soon. And thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
All right, bye. All right, well, that brings episode 24 of the METC podcast to a close. I would like to thank you for listening and checking out this particular podcast. If you think you know someone that would benefit from leveraging those community partnerships or is looking for some funding opportunities, I mean, who isn't really, right? Please pass this podcast along. You can share it through iTunes. You can share it through Google Play. You could share it through Podbean. Or you can even share our website, metcedplus.org. All of the previous podcast episodes are located there. All the information about our organization and what we have to offer as a community is there as well. So check out metcedplus.org for that information there. So I'll give a shout out again to Shannon Steimel for joining us for this episode. I greatly appreciate it. It was awesome to hear what she's been able to do by leveraging those partnerships, working with those small businesses, startups in the area to really provide a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for these kids. And so it was great to hear that. I was able to go down to her school and see some of the things she's doing with her students firsthand, so it's awesome stuff. I would definitely look to reaching out to her and to get some more ideas. Just the idea of making sure you have a plan. It sounds so simple, right? But, it's definitely something that it's hard to think of sometimes, and we need to if we want to make this happen. So thanks again, and thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Until our next episode, have a good one. Welcome to the Midwest Education Technology Community Podcast, otherwise known as METC. METC is a nonprofit organization based out of St. Louis, Missouri, with a mission to motivate, engage, transform, and connect all learners to advocacy, partnerships, and professional learning opportunities. METC is a premier affiliate of ISTE. To learn more about METC, follow us on social media at METC EdPlus. You may also check out our website at metcedplus.org. METC is a program of Education Plus. To learn more about Education Plus, go to edplus.org.